Last fall, I was sent to a small town in northern Pennsylvania for work. I do commercial refrigeration repair, and at the time my company was short on technicians, so I was being sent all over to cover jobs in smaller, quieter places. This town felt off the second I arrived. It wasn't just that it was quiet, it felt empty, like life had slowly drained out of it. Most of the storefronts were closed by the time I got there, and the few that were open looked like they were barely holding on. I was scheduled to stay for 3 nights while I worked on a set of failing walk-in freezers at an older family-owned supermarket. My company booked me into a motel just outside town. It was the kind of place where all the doors faced the parking lot, one long row of rooms under a flickering strip of lights. There couldn't have been more than a dozen rooms total, and only a handful of cars were parked when I pulled in. I checked in around 7 p.m. The office smelled like stale coffee and cleaning chemicals. The woman behind the counter looked to be in her 60s. She was polite, but distracted. While I was signing the paperwork, I noticed she kept glancing past me through the window toward the parking lot, like she was expecting someone or watching for them. When she handed me the key, she gave me a strange piece of advice. She said, "If anyone knocks on your door at night, don't answer it unless it's me or the owner." She said it casually, like it was a normal thing to tell a guest. Then she added, "And if you hear anything outside, just call the office. Don't go out there." It caught me off guard. I asked if the area was dangerous. She just shrugged and said there were some drifters around who liked to bother guests. I didn't think much of it at the time. I was tired from driving and just wanted to eat and sleep. My room was near the far end of the building, second to last. It was clean enough, but old. There were cigarette burns on the dresser, stains in the carpet that didn't quite come out, and a faint smell of something damp in the air. I dropped my bag, grabbed food from a gas station down the road, and came back around 8. That's when I first noticed the truck. It was an older, dark green pickup parked a couple spaces away from mine. The engine was running, but the headlights were off. Someone was sitting inside, but I couldn't see their face clearly. What stuck with me was how still they were. Both hands on the wheel, not moving, not even turning their head when I walked past. It felt wrong. I told myself they were just waiting for someone and went inside. The next couple hours were uneventful. I ate, watched videos on my phone, and tried to unwind. Around 10:30, I took a shower and got into bed. Maybe 20 minutes later, I heard footsteps outside my room. That didn't bother me at first. Other guests were staying there. But the footsteps stopped right outside my door. I waited, expecting a key in the lock or a knock on the neighboring room. Nothing happened. Just silence. After about 15 seconds, the footsteps continued, moving away. Then a minute later, they came back again, slower this time, and stopped right outside my door again. Still no knock. Still nothing. Then they walked away. I got up and checked through the peephole, but the walkway was empty. I figured it was someone drunk or confused about their room and tried to ignore it. A little after 11, I was drifting off when someone knocked. 2 slow, deliberate knocks. I froze. They knocked again, same rhythm. I got up quietly and looked through the peephole. No one. The walkway was empty. That's when I felt the first real drop in my stomach. I double-checked the lock, then noticed something else. The curtain by the window had shifted slightly. Not enough to see out, just enough to realize someone might be able to see in. I closed it completely and turned off the lamp. Around midnight, I heard something else. A faint, metallic scraping sound near the door. I stepped closer and looked through the peephole again. This time I saw someone. They were crouched low, just below the line of sight. I could only see the top of a dark baseball cap and part of their shoulder. They stayed there for a few seconds, then suddenly stood up and moved away quickly. I heard footsteps heading toward the far end of the building. That's when I called the front desk. The woman answered, sounding annoyed at first. But when I told her someone had been crouched outside my door, her tone changed instantly. She asked if I had opened the door. I told her no. She told me to stay inside. A couple minutes later, headlights passed across my window as someone drove slowly through the lot. Then it went quiet again. They called back and said nobody was there anymore. I barely slept that night. Around 5:15 a.m., I woke up to the sound of my truck alarm going off. I rushed to the window and peeked through the curtain. A man was standing at my truck with the driver's door half open. He was tall, wearing a dark jacket and hat. His back was turned to me. Then, like he felt me watching, he turned his head slightly toward my room. Even from that distance, it felt like he was looking directly at me. He shut the door and walked off quickly toward the road behind the motel. I called 911. The police showed up about 15 minutes later. They didn't find anything missing from my truck, but there were fresh marks on the door handle. One officer asked if I was sure I had locked it. I knew I had. The older officer took things more seriously. When I told him about the knocking and the person crouching outside my door, he listened carefully. Before leaving, he told me if anything else happened, I should not open the door for any reason. I should have left that morning, but I didn't. I worked all day and came back that evening around 6:30. It was already dark. I parked under the brightest light and carried everything inside in one trip. The woman at the desk asked if I was okay. I told her I hadn't slept. She hesitated, then offered to move me to a room near the office. When I asked why she hadn't offered that before, she said something I still think about. She said, "It usually doesn't happen 2 nights in a row." That made everything worse. Around 8 p.m., I saw the same green pickup again. It drove slowly through the lot, then parked at the far end with the lights off. I stayed inside. Around 11, I heard slow footsteps again, then a soft tap on the window. I didn't move. Another tap. Then something dragged down the glass. Slow, intentional. I lay there frozen, knowing someone was standing inches away from me. Then I heard the bathroom window start to move. It was opening. I ran and shoved it shut just as something on the other side pushed back once. That was it. I called 911 immediately. While I was on the phone, I heard movement next door. The empty room beside mine had been opened. Not like a guest checking in, quiet, careful movement. Then a hard knock on the wall between us, like someone testing it. The police arrived minutes later. Whoever was outside ran. This time they found evidence. The window screen had been removed. There were pry marks on my truck and the empty room next door. Before I left, I found something under the bed, a torn piece of newspaper. On the back, someone had written my room number and my license plate. That's when I realized. They hadn't just found me that night. They had been watching. I packed everything and left before 1 a.m. I never went back. And I don't stay in roadside motels anymore. Because sometimes you're not just passing through a town. Sometimes something in that town notices you first. My name is Mike, and this happened last October when I decided to take a solo camping trip in the Smoky Mountains. I'd been feeling completely burned out from work for months. Long hours, constant stress, and barely any time to myself. It all started to pile up in a way that made me feel like I just needed to get away from everything. Not a vacation with noise and people, just silence. Real silence. So I packed my gear, took a few days off, and planned a trip deep into the mountains where I could be alone. I'd done solo trips before and nothing bad had ever happened. That's probably why I didn't think twice about it. If anything, I felt confident, comfortable, like I knew what I was doing. The drive took most of the day. A few hours before reaching the mountains, I stopped at a small roadside diner. It was one of those places that looked like it hadn't changed in decades. The kind where locals sit around drinking coffee and everyone seems to know each other. It was quiet. Just a few older people scattered around and a waitress who looked like she'd been working there her entire life. I sat at the counter and ordered a burger and fries. While I was eating, I noticed a man sitting a few stools down from me. He wasn't doing anything obvious, nothing that would make someone panic, but there was something about him that stuck with me. He kept glancing in my direction, but not in a normal way. He didn't turn his head fully, just quick side glances, like he didn't want me to notice. At one point, he spoke. "Where are you headed?" he asked casually. I told him I was going camping in the mountains. He nodded slowly and said, "Be careful out there." I laughed a little and asked what he meant. He shrugged. "It gets real quiet out there at night." That was it. No explanation, no smile, just that sentence. I didn't think much of it at the time. I paid my bill, left, and kept driving. By late afternoon, I reached the trailhead where I planned to park. It was just a dirt pull-off near the woods, nothing official. No signs, no other cars. Completely empty. Looking back, that should have been my first warning. But at the time, it felt perfect. Exactly what I wanted. No people. I grabbed my gear and started hiking in. The trail wasn't difficult, but it took longer than I expected. The deeper I went, the more I realized I was going to be setting up camp close to dark. The light started fading faster than I wanted, and that gray, dim tone settled into the woods. Eventually, I found a small clearing. It wasn't anything special, but it was flat and open enough for a tent and a fire. I didn't waste time. I rushed to set everything up before it got too dark to see. By the time I finished, the sun was almost gone. I built a small fire, sat down, and for a while everything felt right. Peaceful. The kind of quiet I had been craving. Just the sound of wind through the trees, distant insects, and the crackling fire in front of me. I made some s'mores, leaned back, and started to relax. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Not the random rustling you expect from animals. These were steady, heavy, intentional. I looked up, and that's when I saw him. A man standing between the trees, maybe 30 or 40 feet away, just outside the firelight. He wasn't moving, just standing there, facing me. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I knew he was watching. I called out, asking if he was okay. He stepped forward slightly, just enough for the firelight to catch part of him. He looked normal, nothing obviously wrong, but something about him felt off. "Hello," he said. Just that. Nothing else. I asked if he was camping nearby. Instead of answering, he asked, "You out here alone?" That question hit me in a way I can't fully explain. My stomach dropped instantly. Every instinct told me not to answer honestly. So I lied. "No," I said. "My friends are coming up later." He stared at me for a second, then nodded slowly. Without another word, he turned and walked back into the woods. I watched him go the entire time. Right before he disappeared into the darkness, he stopped and turned back toward me. He stood there again, completely still. I pretended to look at my phone, acting like I didn't notice him anymore. But I could feel him there, watching. After what felt like forever, I looked up again. He was gone. I stayed by the fire longer than I planned, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. Eventually, I put the fire out and got into my tent. That's when things got worse. About an hour later, I heard footsteps again, closer this time. They moved slowly around my campsite, circling my tent, leaves crunching under steady, careful steps. Then they stopped, right outside. Everything went silent. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then I heard it. A slow exhale, right outside the tent. Not loud, not aggressive, just there. Like someone standing inches away. I stayed completely still, pretending to be asleep. Every instinct told me that if I moved, if I made any sound, something bad would happen. After a long time, the footsteps moved away. I let out a slow breath. Then, 10 minutes later, they came back. Same pattern, walking, circling, stopping, waiting. This went on for hours. Sometimes the steps would fade, and I'd think he left. Then they'd return, over and over again. At some point, something changed. The footsteps didn't sound like just one person anymore. I couldn't explain it, but it felt different. Like there were multiple sets of steps, slightly out of sync. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just one man. I stayed awake the entire night. When the first light of morning finally started creeping through the tent, I didn't wait. I grabbed my things as fast as I could, hands shaking the entire time. As soon as I unzipped the tent and stepped outside, I heard it. Multiple sets of footsteps. Running. Fast. all around me, moving away through the trees. Not one person, several. I didn't even look. I grabbed what I could carry and left. I practically jogged back to the trail, expecting to hear someone following me at any second. But I didn't. When I reached my car, I locked the doors and just sat there, trying to calm down. At some point, I passed out. When I woke up, the sun was high in the sky. For a moment, I tried to rationalize everything. Maybe it was just other campers messing with me. Maybe I had overreacted. I even thought about going back, getting the rest of my gear. It was daylight now. It felt safer. So I went back. And that's when I knew I wasn't imagining anything. My campsite was completely empty. My tent, gone. My sleeping bag, gone. Everything I left behind, gone. Not scattered, not destroyed, just gone. Like I had never been there. The only thing left was the black circle of ash where my fire had been. I stood there for a moment, trying to process it. Then I turned around and walked away. I didn't report it. I didn't try to find my things. I just left. Because at that point, losing gear didn't matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was that I got out of there alive. I haven't gone camping alone since. And sometimes, late at night, I still think about it. About how many people were actually out there, how close they were, and how long they stood outside my tent while I pretended to be asleep. This all started in October of 2025, and at the time I was completely alone. I had just gotten out of a long relationship, and I figured maybe it was time to try something new. So I downloaded Tinder. I wasn't expecting much, just maybe someone to talk to, maybe even something real if I got lucky. After a few minutes of swiping, I got a match. "Killian liked you back." I remember smiling to myself. It felt like one of those small, hopeful moments you don't think twice about. I sent a simple message, "Hey, what's up?" And to my surprise, he replied almost instantly. At first, everything felt normal. He was charming, funny, and easy to talk to. We started texting constantly, morning, afternoon, late at night. It felt like we had known each other for a long time, even though it had only been days. He told me he was in the military, stationed at a base not too far from where I lived. That made him seem more trustworthy somehow. But after a couple of weeks, something started to change. It wasn't sudden. It was slow, subtle. He began asking more personal questions. Where I was, who I was with, what I was doing. At first, I brushed it off as interest. But then the tone shifted. "You're mine," he said one night. I laughed it off, thinking he was joking. But he didn't laugh. "If I can't have you," he continued, "no one can." That was the first time I felt uncomfortable. Then came the threats. "If you block me, I'll kill you." I remember staring at my phone, trying to figure out if he was serious or just being dramatic. We weren't even dating. We had never met in person. But something about the way he said it, it didn't feel like a joke. Still, I didn't know what to do, so I kept responding, carefully, trying not to upset him. And then one day in December, he disappeared. He unfriended me, blocked me, just like that. I felt relieved. I didn't think about him again. I moved on with my life. Weeks passed. I forgot his name, his voice, everything, until a few days ago. I got a notification. He added me again. My stomach dropped the second I saw his name. For a moment I considered ignoring it, but then I remembered the things he said, the threats, the way he talked. So I accepted. Almost immediately he sent me a snap. "I've been thinking about your beautiful smile for 8 weeks now. I keep thinking about what we could be, if I didn't let my dark thoughts win." I didn't know how to respond. I didn't want to encourage him, but I also didn't want to make him angry. So I typed back, "That's cute." From that moment on, it started again, but worse. He acted like we were in a relationship, like he owned me. He kept asking where I was, who I was with, what I was doing. He wanted me to turn on my Snapchat location so he could make sure I was safe. I refused. That seemed to bother him, but I tried to stay calm. I answered just enough to keep him from getting angry, but not enough to give him anything real. Then came Thursday night. I was out with a friend, just driving around, talking, trying to forget about everything. We stayed out late, later than usual. Around 1 a.m., I asked him to drop me off at home. He pulled up near the alleyway beside my house. We said goodbye and I stepped out of the car. The night was quiet. Too quiet. I started walking down the alley toward my door, and then I saw him. A man standing in the shadows. At first, I didn't think anything of it. It was late. Maybe he lived nearby. Then he said my name. Everything inside me froze. "Yeah?" I replied slowly. "Who's asking?" He stepped forward just enough for the light to hit his face, and that's when I recognized him. Killian. My heart dropped so hard it felt like it stopped. I never gave him my address. I never told him where I lived. Before I could react, he closed the distance between us. His hand wrapped around my throat instantly, tightening with terrifying force. He slammed my head against the wall beside the alley so hard my vision blurred. "Who were you with?" he demanded. I couldn't answer. "Why are you out this late?" he yelled. "Was it a man?" His grip tightened. I couldn't breathe. My chest burned as I struggled for air, my hands weakly trying to pull his fingers away. Tears filled my eyes as panic took over completely. I thought I was going to die right there. He kept staring at my face, studying me like I wasn't even human. Like I was something he owned, something he could break. Then suddenly he threw me to the ground. My head hit first, sending pain shooting through my body. I gasped for air, coughing, trying to breathe again. But he wasn't done. He climbed on top of me and slapped me hard across the face. The impact rang through my skull. I barely had time to react before his hands were back around my throat. This time, it was worse, stronger, longer. Everything started fading. The world around me grew distant and dark. My body went weak. My thoughts slowed. And in that moment, I genuinely believed this was it. I remember looking up at the sky. It was completely black. And for some reason I thought about my dog, the one I lost years ago. I even smiled. I thought maybe I'd see him again. Then suddenly, Killian let go. I dropped to the ground, choking and gasping, dragging in air like I had been underwater. "Fuck," he muttered. "I have to go. The last bus leaves in 3 minutes." And just like that, he ran. He disappeared into the darkness, leaving me there on the cold, wet ground. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. My throat was so damaged I couldn't even make a sound. I grabbed my phone and called my best friend, but all that came out were broken, strangled noises. He couldn't understand me, but he knew something was wrong. He said he was coming. When I got to his house, I collapsed on the couch and passed out almost instantly. My body had completely shut down from exhaustion and shock. While I was asleep, he called the police. The next day, he took me to the station. I told them everything. Every message, every threat, every detail. They didn't take it lightly. After hearing what happened, they told me something that made everything worse. My life was in danger. They gave me a personal alarm device and a tracker, something I could press if I ever saw him again. Something that would immediately alert the police to my location, because they believed he would come back. And they were right. 3 days ago, I noticed someone following me. Not Killian, but someone connected to him, a friend. If I hadn't already arranged for someone to pick me up nearby, I don't think I would be here telling this story. The police later confirmed it. Killian's intention wasn't just control, it was murder. And the only reason I'm still alive is because he had to catch a bus. Now every time I leave my house, I feel it. That constant fear, like I'm being watched. Because he told me I would be. He said he'd always be watching. And the truth is, one day, I might not see him coming. One day he might be waiting in that same dark alley. And I might not press that alarm fast enough. I'm not safe. And I don't know if I ever will be again. So if you're listening to this, be careful who you trust, because sometimes you don't need to give someone your address for them to find you.